Good soldiers follow orders.
Hello everyone and welcome for another video of the Baddest Batch. Today we're going to look at 3 decks for pre-release. Pre-release starts tonight. For us here in Australia, we're a little bit ahead of everybody else from a time point of view, so we'll have pre-release before the rest of the world. But it's starting today. Mine is in 4 hours, something like that. So I'm excited. Today we're going to look at 3 decks, like I said, that are options. I don't want to say recommendations because I don't want to say you should be playing these decks. But I think these decks are going to do pretty good in pre-release and they should be relatively easy to build. And we're going to look at it today. We're going to do Calstus, Snoke, and Talin. Now keep in mind, those were built with my experience of pre-release and somewhat of an expectations of how much common, uncommon, rare you can get in those packs. Also understand it's pretty limited, so you might not be able to do those decks, and you have to understand that as well. You have to be relatively flexible. I recommend when you look at pre-release decks to look at your bulk colors rather than, oh, I really want to play this card, how do I make it work? What do you have the most of, right? Where are you gonna have a smooth curve, enough units, a balance of events, removal, space, things like that. So really look at your bulk and create a deck around that rather than, oh, I really want to play this leader, can I make it work and have an average deck? Important to note that I only took 3 common leaders today. So feel free to play with rare leaders if you want, but today I took common leaders. Decks are built with mainly commons and uncommons, a couple of rares here and there, and no legendaries. Now, of course, if you find some legendaries to throw in those decks, by all means, throw them in there, they're going to be great. First, we're going to have Calstus Red. So we're going to look at it in terms of, we're going to start early in the curve, look at the ground units and then the space units. I think it's important when you build decks in sealed that you have a good balance of first turn, like early turn units, because that can really decide your game. Now, keep in mind, you only have 30 cards, so your stats don't need to be the same as when you build 50 card decks. So first, BD1. So I played a little bit of this Calstus deck in Constructed. Really good deck, really aggressive, and that's kind of what you want to play. That's like you want to play this deck in your pre-release. Now, you only have the 28 health base for everyone. So it's 2 less health that you have to take away from your opponent. It's really good when you're playing aggressive decks. Now, those 28 health base are the base decks for this set, so everybody's going to have those. Now, feel free to play with the rares, but these are going to be the bases, which gives you the force when you attack with a force unit. So first up, I have BD1, which is a little bit like Hu Yang. Similar kind of vibe, not as strong, but similar kind of vibe where it boosts the unit as long as it's present on the battlefield. So this one gives +1/+0 and saboteur to a unit. So really good to put on Calstus or put on another one of the units to go past the sentinels and kind of keep grinding those out. We're not going to go into decks in too much details. I'm just going to go through some key cards because a lot of these cards are replaceable, right? You're gonna make do with what you can. Adigalia, that's one of the rare, but anytime you can get those 2 4s turn 1s in your pre-release, just grab them, they're going to be amazing. Youngling Padawan, you get the force, really good to trigger some of the later stuff like Mace Windu's or Vernestra. Speaking of Vernestra, that's the second rare that I have there. If you can get one of those and play yellow, she's going to be amazing, especially if you can get the force early. Jedi Sentinel 5/4, like any big bodies in pre-release and sealed are going to be really good, whether they can be on the ground or in space. Big bodies in space are really hard to remove in sealed, so if you can get some, by all means get them. Now let's touch up on Ki-Adi-Mundi and Mace Windu here. I think these are cards, if you can pull them, they're both uncommon, so not impossible to pull, but won't be you might not get any. If you get those, I think these are the kind of cards which can push you to play in these colors. I think if you get Ki-Adi-Mundi or Mace Windu and you can see that you can kind of play red hero, I would encourage you to do so because both these cards are absolute monsters in Constructed and they're going to be really good in sealed. So I invite you guys to play with that as well. The other card that's really interesting is Quinlan. Again, another uncommon, but really good card in this Calstus deck. It's a 4/5. It's a big body. Now in constructed, he's a monster. Here is a little bit harder to trigger because you need to attack with 6 or more. So if he has 6 or more power, you do an extra 2 damage to base. Now that's why I have those nice sabers in there. If you can have a saber of any kind stick on him, and now all of a sudden he's a 7/7, right? And you get to attack base with that. All of a sudden it's 9 damage that you're dealing to base. That's a third of the health base, right? With those 28 health base. So it's really interesting if you can buff him a little bit. He can be good with BD1, but BD1's not enough to give him that buff. So yeah, if you can buff him with a saber, he's gonna be really good. Other interesting cards. So obviously I went with mostly force units. I think you need to have enough force units to get it and keep triggering Calstus's ability. Now keep in mind, it's not an automatic trigger. Keep it if you have things like Kiedi Mundi coming and you're not sure about your ability to get the force back. Mace Windu, even the Jedi in hiding. All these things, you need the force for it. So just be mindful how much you trigger Cal versus how much you keep it for those units. I put the Mantis in there, which goes really well with Cal. It's a decent body in space, 4/6, hard to remove. Again, I think in space, if you can get things like the Stinger Mantis to stick, or the Blue Squadron, it's a 5/5 rate 1. Again, I put that in there. It's just a common, right? You might get one of those. Anything similar to that are usually good choices because they can win you the game, or you need to swing once or twice, and you're good to go. Especially because there's not a ton of removal this set. So it can be really interesting. The Trust Your Instincts, another option to go with things like Quinlan because you get +2 attack. So all of a sudden you're going to base for 6 plus the 2 of Quinlan. So now it's 8. Things like that are really good. Now let's move on to Snoke. I went with Snoke Blue. Again, if you don't have enough blue, go with Snoke something else. But Snoke is one of these little who's going to be really good in pre-release because he's easy and he goes with everything. Okay, so now you need to have enough villainy cards. Okay, that's how it works. He gives experience token to the friendly villainy unit with the most power. Okay, so I went all villainy units here. I'm not interested in anything else. Let me pull my deck list. The Force TIE Fighter is an interesting one because it's a 1/1 in space, hidden. The hidden is relatively irrelevant here. With raid 1, so it's a 2/1. If you give him the experience all of a sudden, it's going to hit for 3, and you can keep doing that. Again, there's not a ton of space in this set, way less than the last set. So if you get something to stick in space, it can be really interesting. So again, that's a common. And it's a common villainy, so they'll be harder to get, but it's very doable. The Bolstered Entrance, I think, is a monster card in sealed. I have them in the Talin deck as well because +1/+3 on a force unit is really good. It's massive. If you look at that Fallen Jedi, for example, it's a 3/4. All of a sudden you're adding this. Now it's a 4/7. It's really hard to remove. Next thing you know, you put an experience on it. It's a 5/8. It's really hard to manage. So if you have those bolstered endurance and you can play in blue, I really recommend them. Especially because this set there's so many force units, so you're gonna find a target for this. The Exocol Patroller, again, it's nothing special. It's a 3/1 overwhelm, but if on turn 2 you can do that plus an experience token, then you have a 4/2. If you can stick in space for a couple of turns, that's a lot of damage there. We're not playing with the force too much in this deck. It's there, but it's not the priority. Things of like Knight of Ren, it's a 4/4. That's a big body. The Praetorian Guard 2/5, which can rapidly turn into a 3/6 with Sentinel on resource 4/3. It can be really interesting. The Praetorian Guard is really good with the Sith Legionnaire because the Sith Legionnaire can be a 4/0 if you have the Praetorian Guard, and then the Praetorian Guard turns into a Sentinel. So really good combo there if you can make that happen. Shadow Point is your best removal in this set, in my opinion, just because it's versatile. If you have the Force, you kill any non-leader unit, and even if you don't have the Force, you get to kill something. With 3 less HP remaining, knowing that you're not going to use the Force too much in this Snoke deck, that gives you a bit of freedom to keep it for things like Shadow Point or Thousand Assassin. Thousand Assassin, really good. It's a common, and you give -3/-3 to a unit when played if you use the Force. So that can be a removal plus a 4/4 body. That's awesome. Interesting combo here. I have the Consumed by the Dark Side, which gives 2 experience token to units, then deal 2 damage to it. Really interesting with things like the Central Cavalry. It's a 2/6 with grit. If you give it 2 experience token, it's 4/8. You deal the 4 damage, so it'll be a 6/6. So that can be really interesting. Then you can start putting some experience on there and keep bulking him up. Stuff like that is really good. The only rare that I have in this one is the Sun. More here as a finisher. Again, like I said, you're not going to use the Force too much with this kind of deck, so this card gives you +2/+0 to all your friendly units as long as the Force is with you. Because you're not going to use it, it's probably going to be with you if you've attacked with at least 1 Force unit during this game, which you have a few. Not a ton, but you have your Thousand Assassin, you have your Fallen Jedis, and your Karis and your Kylo Rens. So you have a couple there. Again, very likely that you won't get the Sun, but it's these kind of cards that you want to look at to finish your games. Again, Snoke, I think, is super versatile. You can play him in any color. If you have enough villainy units, really look at playing him, because he's not hard. You don't need a lot of synergy. You just need villainy units, 1 resource, and he goes on everything. Calstus is a little bit harder because you need the Force, but not too hard either. Little Snoke is super versatile. Lastly, we're going to go Talin Red, which was a Mother Talin, which here, again, a Force interaction. If you use the Force, you give a unit -1/-1. So here you need a little bit more Force units to gain the Force, keep using it and gain it. Things like that. Again, here I have this bolstered endurance, which goes perfectly into this deck. Here, again, reminder, I put 2 here. You might only get 1. You might get 3. You might not get any at all. So it'll depend on what you can pick. Few Force units early, or at least units that give you the Force or use it. Like the Acolyte of the Beyond is not a Force unit, but he grants you the Force. Infused Brawler is great, so 4/4 to start, and then goes to a 3/3. All the Knights Sisters interact really well with Talin because they do stuff with the Force, which is either give -/, and grant you the Force, so they have a really good synergy. If we look at that Karis, for example, when defeated, if you use the Force, you give a unit -2/-2, so that allows you to finish some weaker targets, or some bigger ones. If you run into something that's a 4/4, you can kill it with that Karis, which is really good, as long as you have the Force, right? Which you will, because it's a non-attack grant, so you should get it with Karis. Spectre Stage, Secretive Stage, sorry. I think if you can get a Secretive Stage in your pre-release, that's an awesome card. It's awesome turn. You're going to get the Force from it. It's unlikely to die turn 1, especially in sealed. So really interesting card. A little bit of the same. It's a little bit of some of the same cards as we saw in that Snoke blue, with that Talzin's Assassin, with the Fallen Jedi, and some similar stuff that we saw as well in the Cal with the Jedi in hiding. I'd put Asajj here just for a bit of variety instead of Quinlan. When played, given over a friendly Force unit, +2/+0 for defense. Here, obviously, we're going a lot more Force heavy than we were for Snoke, for example. So Asajj makes sense if you can get her. Obviously, if you can get the Asajj plus Quinlan combo. Apologies. That's awesome. Also added 2 cards here, like in the space, Graceful Purgil and Grappling Guardian. Not necessarily because they go well with Talin, but because they're big space units, and big space units in sealed are really, really hard to remove. Graceful Purrgil 2/7. If your opponent happens to be playing a bit more space than you, that's all you need to stop it. That will tank 2-3 cards, no problem. Grappling Guardian as well. You're gonna kill a big unit, and now you have this 3/9, which is gonna keep the space in check. So interesting stuff here. Card that I think can be really good in sealed, which is say is gonna be Sauvage Opress. As long as you have the force, you can play him. It's a 9/6 for 6 with Overwhelm, and when played and when defeated, if you have the force, or if you don't have the force, you're gonna have to deal 9 damage to your base. Otherwise, use the force and prevent that. But 9/6 for 6 can be a really massive game swinger if your opponent doesn't have the answer to. Chirrut, touch upon that. If you can get him in sealed, I would get it absolutely. He's a monster in constructed, and he's gonna be really good in sealed as long as you can get the force relatively consistently, which this type of deck should. Chirrut is gonna be a banger here. Now you can see some things that don't necessarily have any synergy. You think of like the heavy missile gunship. It's a 4/3/4/4 with an action, deal 2 damage to a ground unit. But I'm just chucking those in there because this is the reality of sealed. You're gonna end up with things that don't really synergize the rest of the deck, but you need bodies, you need balance. I think that's what you gotta remember as well. It's sometimes you're gonna look at it and say, oh wow, my synergy is really good. But then you have no space, or you have no late game, you have no removal, no sentinels. So you have to look at it sometimes and get rid of things that synergize better with the rest of the deck, but which is really like a duplicate of what you already have in terms of curve or in terms of effects, and grab a little bit of variety. I put Old Naka in there. If you can get Old Naka and Talin together, that's gonna be pretty good. When played, you may defeat a friendly knight unit not named Old Naka, then you may play that unit from your discard pile for free. So if your unit is damaged, or if it has a when played ability, you can just recycle that unit. So yeah, again, this doesn't mean that these are all the decks that I think you should play. Just remember, you're gonna have the starters, the specials as they call them, in Qui-Gon and Maul. You slot Maul into that slot of Maul with Talin, and you put a blue base instead. That works really, really well as well. Same thing with Qui-Gon. If you put Qui-Gon instead of Calstus in the first one that we looked at, that's going to work just as well, just not as aggressive early, more of like a late game appearance by Qui-Gon when Cal comes out on 4. Look, I hope you enjoy your pre-release and that your pools are really good. I'm not sure what I'll be playing tonight, but I'll probably post it in the comments after and see what we get. Hopefully I get some good pools. I think I'm playing with Clint tonight. TV won't be there. Please, if you've watched this before your pre-release, let me know what you're looking forward to playing. And if you've watched this after, let me know what you've played at your first pre-release. I think I'll probably be doing 4 of them. So yeah, enjoy and good luck on your pools.